The United States Senate has passed legislation to reopen government, bringing the longest shutdown in U.S. history closer to an end.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he wants to order 25 Patriot air defense systems from the US.
France is preparing to commemorate the 10th year anniversary of the November 13, 2015 Paris terror attacks.
COP30 kicked off this Monday as Brazil's President Lula da Silva urged leaders to spend less money on war and more on climate.
The United States Senate has passed legislation to reopen government, bringing the longest shutdown in U.S. history closer to an end. A small group of Democrats ratified the deal despite searing criticism from within their party, breaking a stalemate that lasted more than 6 weeks amid demands that Republicans negotiate to extend healthcare tax credits. The 41-day shutdown could last a few more days as members of the House, which has been on recess since mid-September, return to Washington to vote on the legislation.
We're not going to support a partisan Republican spending bill that continues to gut the health care of the American people. And we're going to continue the fight to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. And if it doesn't happen this week, next week, this month, next month, then it's the fault of Donald Trump, House and Senate Republicans, who continue to make life more expensive for the American people.
While the Democrats' demands were not met, the deal includes a promised vote in December on healthcare subsidies, but there's no guarantee of success. The Democrats who approved of the deal argued Republicans refused to budge on key demands and were left with no other option.
U.S. President Donald Trump vowed to do everything to make Syria successful following a first-of-its-kind White House meeting with Syrian President Ahmad al-Shara on Monday. After the closed-door Oval Office meeting, Trump expressed support for al-Shara, and a senior administration official announced Syria will now be the 90th country to join the global coalition to combat the Islamic State group.
Well, I've had an agreement with him. He's a very strong leader. He comes from a very tough place, and he's a tough guy. I liked him. I get along with him, the new president of Syria. And we'll do everything we can to make Syria successful because that's part of the Middle East.
Al-Shara's visits to the White House caps a remarkable rebranding for the former jihadist who until recently was designated a terrorist by the U.S. government. In an interview with U.S. media, Fox News, al-Shara said the visit was part of a new era in which the country would cooperate with the U.S. Following Monday's meeting, the U.S. is expected to announce new measures to lift economic restrictions on Syria and provide compliance clarity for investors.
The former French President Nicolas Sarkozy has been released from prison. A Paris appeals court has ordered him to be placed under judicial supervision pending his appeal. The decision comes less than 3 weeks after he began serving a 5-year sentence for criminal conspiracy in a scheme to finance his 2007 election campaign with funds from Libya. The former president left the Paris prison in a car with tinted windows, escorted by police on motorcycles. According to one of Sarkozy's lawyers, being in prison had been very hard for the former French president, and his detention had caused him great suffering. Another of Sarkozy's legal team argued that Sarkozy would be safer out of prison than inside. The 70-year-old Sarkozy became the first former French head of state in modern times to be sent to prison after his conviction in September.
At least one person was injured and several fires broke out after a wave of Russian drone strikes targeted the Odessa region, Ukraine's state emergency service said on Tuesday. The attacks happened late on Monday evening and triggered fires in a number of energy infrastructure facilities. All the blazes were extinguished by firefighters, the emergency service added. Strikes were also reported in the frontline city of Kramatorsk, where one person was reported killed after Russian drones hit civilian infrastructure, according to the city council. The strikes come as intense fighting continues on the front line, especially near the city of Pokrovsk, where Russian troops have been closing in over the past weeks. The two sides have locked in a battle for control of Pokrovsk in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region, where Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia has assembled 170,000 troops for a renewed push. The General Staff of the Armed Forces said Ukrainian forces repelled 63 Russian attacks there over the past day.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that he wants to order 25 Patriot air defense systems from the US on Monday. Russian attacks have caused more damage to its power infrastructure, resulting in scheduled blackouts in most of the country's regions. Zelensky acknowledged that the Patriot systems are expensive and that such a large batch could take years to manufacture. The Ukrainian president suggested that European countries could give their Patriots to Ukraine and await replacements. Zelensky acknowledged last week that Ukraine had received more Patriot systems from Germany, as the German Defense Ministry said that Berlin has been Kyiv's biggest donor of the air defense systems. The Trump administration is not donating any arms to Ukraine, unlike the previous Biden administration. It is not known how many Patriots are in Ukraine.
The European Commission and the European Parliament continue to work on the EU's next long-term budget. On Monday, the presidents of the two institutions met with the Danish Prime Minister, whose country currently holds the rotating presidency of the EU. The aim is to iron out differences. Lawmakers are particularly opposed to merging the common agriculture policy and regional cohesion policy into a single fund. A parliamentary majority believes this would dilute the European scope of these programs. The Commission is therefore proposing adjustments.
These proposals concern three areas. So you have the reinforcement of the identity of the common agricultural policy. You've got the strengthening of the role of the regions, and the last point concerns enhancing governance.
In concrete terms, the Commission is therefore proposing to introduce a rural target to ensure minimum funding for agriculture. It also plans to give regional authorities more say in determining how cohesion funds are used. In the next budgetary architecture, the cluster comprising agriculture and regional policy accounts for 44% of the total budget, estimated at almost 2 trillion euros.
France will on Thursday commemorate the 10th anniversary of the Paris attacks, paying homage to the 130 people killed and hundreds more wounded when 9 Islamist terrorists attacked the Bataclan concert hall, bars and terraces on 13 November 2015. As the anniversary approaches, survivors are also remembering the events more closely. Arthur Deneveux is the president of the Victims Association Life for Paris.
It took me a year and a lot of, medicine to overcome, I would say, the most critical phases of PTSD, which was, unexpectedly and more often than I would have liked, something popped up, either on the subway or, during fireworks when you feel the smoke. But since 2017, I would say I've had no panic attack. I've had nothing of that kind. But I'm very cautious because I'm not sure you heal from PTSD. I guess you have long periods of time where nothing happens.
The Paris municipality says it will open a memorial garden on Thursday in memory of the victims and survivors near the city hall. The garden symbolically marks the 6 sites of the attack, and the memorial columns bear the names of the victims.
Indian authorities are investigating a deadly car explosion in New Delhi under an anti-terrorism law, officials said on Tuesday. The law allows broader powers to the National Investigation Agency, India's federal anti-terrorism body, to detain suspects. Forensic experts were working to determine the cause of the blast, which occurred near the historic Red Fort in India's capital on Monday evening. The explosion killed 8 people and injured 19 others, according to police. The government said New Delhi's international airport, metro stations, and government buildings were placed on a high security alert after the explosion. The 17th century Red Fort monument is one of India's most high-profile tourist attractions. The area around Red Fort is typically crowded, serving as a main route to the bustling bazaars of the old city.
COP30 climate talks began on Monday in the Brazilian Amazon as organizers and analysts frame this year's conference as the implementation COP. In this year's talks, countries must present updated national plans to fight climate change. As leaders from Russia, the US and Israel are absent this year, Brazilian President Lula da Silva urged world leaders to prioritize climate funding over war.
Que se os homens que fazem guerra tivessem aqui nesta COP, eles iriam perceber que é muito mais barato colocar 1,3 trilhão para a gente acabar com o problema climático do que colocar 2,7 trilhões para fazer guerra como fizeram no ano passado.
Attendees on Monday stressed cooperation, but complicating those calls is the US, where President Donald Trump has long denied the existence of climate change. The Paris Agreement aimed to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above the historical average, but scientists say meeting that target is now unlikely.